Hey, everybody, welcome to 18 Strong, and we have a special group of guests today. We have our buddies from Superspeed Golf coming on the show. One of the companies and pieces of equipment or really systems that we have been using pretty much from the start of 18 Strong, and they've been a huge supporter of our show. They've been a sponsor of our show, and can't wait to talk to these guys about what's new, what's going on with Superspeed, and hopefully get some questions from the audience, you guys out there listening live, where you can put in your questions and comments in the Facebook reply or comment section to get your question answered on the air live. I do want to say thanks to our other featured sponsor of this episode, which is Linksoul Golf. I don't know about you, but one of the things that always bugged me about golf apparel was not being able to go from the course to wherever I was going afterwards. It was almost like you had a golf uniform and then you had a rest of your life uniform. And so Linksoul has really bridged that gap of being able to wear the same things on the course and off the course. We are doing a giveaway with Linksoul every single week. The way to get your entry in for the giveaway is to go to 18 Strong, the podcast, on iTunes and leave a review. And every week we are picking a review. This week's winner is Jay Mansham, and his review is titled Worth the Listen. And it reads, I have a handful of podcasts I listen to, mostly in the car. Of all of them, 18 Strong is my favorite. Jeff has great guests, including topics and great delivery. I'm an avid golfer who's played my golf career, and I'm now in my mid-40s. I'm very keen on staying healthy and fit and playing my best golf, and 18 Strong helps me with those objectives. It's definitely worth a listen. So, Jay Mansham, go to send an email to support@18strong.com with the subject Linksoul Winner, and we will get your Boardwalker shorts sent out to you. We'll get your size and everything and send that out. So, once again, go to 18 Strong, leave a review on iTunes, and you can enter to win. All right, I am going to bring in our special guests of the day, Kyle Shay, Mike Napoleon from Superspeed Golf. Welcome, guys.
Thanks, Jeff.
Great to have you guys here. I know that everything is kind of flipped upside down in the world of golf and commerce and business and lifestyles. I'm curious, Mike, what has been kind of the outlook on the shutdown for you guys as far as business-wise and everything?
Mm-hmm.
How have sales been? How has Superspeed been kind of working its way through? Is it a time where people are looking for more tools at home, I would assume?
Yeah, no, I think obviously, us along with the rest of the world is ready for things to kind of get back to normal a little bit. I know I'm out here in Denver. My club just opened this last week, so at least be able to get outside and play some golf here finally. So I think on a general sense, everybody I hope is kind of ready to get some stuff back to normal, especially on the business side. We've actually seen, still some pretty steady sales though. A lot of our products, obviously you don't need to hit a golf ball for. So you can do this training at home, which is a really big benefit. So a lot of people have been kind of, locked down, stuck in their houses, still doing their super speed training in their backyards. We've been seeing a lot of, we've done a lot more webinars ourselves and some more, kind of digital platform type connection to our audience. That seems to be really positive. So, we definitely see people still out there gaining some speed with our stuff. So that's great.
The beauty of live TV, the text messages popping in. So Kyle, what have you been seeing as far as are people finding new ways to even use the Superspeed to help them with their game while they're at home, even implementing them into different exercises or anything like that?
Yeah, I think there's definitely been a push for the at-home workouts for sure. So if it's your 18 Strong workouts, your TPI workouts, whatever it might be, everyone seems to be buying all the types of gym equipment from the shelves or online. So really hard, it seems like, to get your dumbbells and your exercise or strength bands. I feel like a lot of people have got this great home setup now, so hopefully they keep using it. I feel like we've been put in that category of your putting mat and your hitting net, and then you've got your super speed clubs, and then you've got your exercise ball and your dumbbells. And I think everybody's going to come out of this potentially healthier than they came out of this or were before the virus was impacting golf. So I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how people kind of commit to this after we can get back out on the course and actually play. We're pushing, obviously, get your protocols in now, get your club head speed up, and then let's maintain it through the summer.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think that everybody has been in a process of being able to restore their body a little bit more, being able to take a little bit more time than they normally would have, depending on what their schedule used to be and what it is now. Hopefully, implementing some of these things. And I mean, I've said it on the show here that I mean, I can't think of a better tool to be able to use right now to keep yourself ready for your golf game. You know, whenever it is that you start up again, I'm hopefully going out for the first time tomorrow. Courses have still been open here in St. Louis, but I haven't been out yet. So hoping to get out and still have maintained my swing, doing some super speed here at home. But what have you guys been doing, Mike? I'm curious. Just how has your schedule changed on a regular basis, just with everything? Do you have a pretty standard schedule of business stuff that you have to do, and how have you also been kind of just socially taking up some of the time?
Yeah, I mean, definitely a big change for me. I mean, I did 145 hotel nights last year. It was certainly on that pace the first couple months of the year here. So, shutting down the travel for me has been kind of wild. But I mean, it's been nice. Obviously, I've got two little kids. I have a 2.5-year-old and a 1-year-old. So it's been fun to be able to spend some more time with them at home. Um, Generally speaking, I'd say I'm kind of getting close to the little bit of cabin fever side here. Trying to get outside as much as possible here. We've had some good weather here in the last couple of weeks in Denver. So, bike rides, walks, various different things. Trying to just stay a little bit active. I think that tendency to just kind of get stuck in a rut of being stuck at home is definitely pretty easy.
How about you, Kyle?
I've been extremely busy on different things, which has been kind of cool to see how we can shift things, especially into the webinar platforms, the Skype calls, the conference calls. So luckily our team all works remotely already. We were obviously traveling a ton, but we're kind of used to this type of platform. So we don't actually have a home office per se. We're spread all over the country and then in Canada and the UK. So we've got Mike and I doing as many video calls, webinars as we can. It seems like we got multiple each day, which has been really cool to just connect to the digital audience even more than we had before. And I think our community has been growing. So we've taken this time to, I think, really make sure that what we're doing is even better. And it's been a good opportunity for us.
Kyle, what do you think will change with SuperSpeed moving forward? As, from a company perspective, how has this kind of given you a different outlook on, maybe the way that you do organize, either your travel or your webinars or the education platforms, things like that moving forward?
Yeah, a lot of our travel has been shifted into being able to do like online seminars, which has been great for us, be able to connect. And it seemingly more and more people are actually becoming involved in those than would have traveled in person. So, for example, we did a TPI live event, and they had almost 200 people signed up for it, compared to how they normally would have 100. So we're able to, I think, connect to people so much different now, and we're definitely going to utilize a lot more of these Zoom calls. We've had webinars with, or Skype calls, a lot of webinars with different coaches, different trainers, such as yourself, different organizations, such as like Golf Digest or Golf Week. So I think I could see ourselves continuing a lot of this ability to connect digitally like this, but still do the in-person stuff, just maybe mix them instead of just doing a lot more in-person like we were doing before.
Yeah, I agree. I think, there's no substitute for some of the programs that we do in person, Jeff. I think some of that stuff is very valuable, just having that, personal contact. That being said, though, I mean, we've had some of our own webinars that have had, 600-700 people at them. So the ability to connect to a lot more people at once is definitely there. So, I would say that we're probably going to shake down the in-person travel, probably, some amount after this all goes, but we'll definitely have a major uptick in the amount of digital content we're producing.
Yeah, I was talking to Jason Phillips, who's a nutrition coach and actually kind of a coach of coaches recently, and he was saying how they've seen a huge, this was even before the whole coronavirus thing, that they saw a huge change in the live event stuff versus their online certifications, and just people are starting to get, people are busy, right? So to have to travel to a certain city to do a certification course or whatever, it's a lot more challenging, and I think what's been going on now has really kind of broken down the barriers of people being afraid to get on a Zoom call or not wanting to try the technology just because they weren't used to it before, but now it's kind of a must,
Mhm.
and I think it's totally kind of opened that up. Mike, what give us an idea of what's been going on with you guys as far as growth, staff-wise. I know I saw you guys down at the PGA show. Unfortunately, didn't get to see Kyle down there, but I know you guys have quite a few people working for you. You had a big couple tents going on. How big is the staff, and how spread out are you guys?
Yeah, well, I mean, we pretty much have coverage all over North America now, also in Europe and the UK. We have 6 full-time employees, so that's pretty substantial little team at this point. I feel like the team now at this point is also very much gelling. We have all the different, let's call it, departmental areas of just the day-to-day business really covered on a really I would say efficient method. So that's all been going great. Yeah, I mean, no complaints there. We have so much activity right now, really getting involved with a lot of the big box retailers, and also getting a lot of the other sports moving along in those different platforms. So there's a lot of movement in baseball, a lot of movement in tennis. The strike spray products are also getting involved with it. So, I mean, at this point, it's becoming more that our team is managing their area in a lot of other sports and products and things as well. Super speed's still the main part of it, but the other auxiliary things are becoming a bigger part of our day to day.
Yeah, it was cool to see you guys just kind of branching out into the other sports. At the PGA show, they had the racket and paddle event there as well, so we got to go over and talk to Mike over at your booth over there. Kyle, tell us a little bit about the strike spray stuff, and I want to also get into the SuperSpeed C, of course, the new product that you guys have. But tell us about the strike spray. What kind of brought that along as that being a product that you guys wanted to offer?
Yeah, I can remember where we were. We were in Indianapolis, Mike and I, and we were at the major, what I would consider this version of the PGA show a couple years ago. And Mike said, "Come into my room in the morning," and I came in. He's like, "I got this idea." And that's kind of how this stuff starts. And then we're like, "Oh boy, we know how this is going to work now," because from step one to getting it produced is obviously not an easy task. But we were just seeing a lot of people using different types of face tapes and powders. We're like, I think we can make this a lot better, and no one had really done it. And so our goal was obviously to make something much more golf specific with that. And we wanted to make a substance that wasn't designed for a shoe. We wanted to make it designed for a golf club. So what we did is just basically started working on different formulas to make it less sticky, less smelly, less going all over the place. And we just tested different things, got a version we wanted, then got all the artwork done for the can and everything, and it started to grow for us. So overall, it's been going really well, and I think it's been a great combination for SuperSpeed Golf, because you can get, obviously, your club head speed up and then hit the ball in the center of the face. Those are the two magic combos to maximize distance and speed effectively. So we've had it as a real good complementary product now for our original SuperSpeed set.
So
Yeah,
just give us
story there, Jeff.
What's that, Mike?
Oh, I just said true story there. Like, we probably have 40 more products, because generally that's what happens. Is I'll have some kind of idea and then talk to Kyle, and then he'll either tell me I'm crazy, or this one was actually one where it's like, all right, I think we got something here. Let's figure it out. And then he tends to help a lot with the execution side. So yeah, just so you know, I'd probably be bankrupt and have 50 products that don't sell out there if it wasn't for Kyle. But yeah.
I think there's a nice little balance there between the two of you, one to kind of rein the other one in with all the ideas. It's funny that you guys came up with this, though, because I remember thinking a couple years ago, like, how is there not someone in the golf market that has branded the spray for a club? Because it was just crazy to me that for years people were just using the shoe spray, and I was like, this is amazing. And obviously I didn't think to do anything with it. It was just like, oh, I wonder why nobody did it. And then I saw this spray can. I'm like, oh, finally somebody did it. And then I was like, oh my God, it's the SuperSpeed guys. They must have been out drinking and having ideas or something.
Absolutely. One of the realizations came, so at our academies back in Chicago, like we always used just the foot spray, right? And I always hated the fact that you couldn't get it off the face very easily, and it took a lot to get it on. The other thing is I called Dr. Scholes at one point. Was like, I think we can resell some of this in our academies. We're using it with all of our players. And they're like, okay, well, minimum order quantity is like 250,000 units. I'm like, That's not going to work for us. Like, we're not going to be able to sell that much. So like that's the nice thing about strike spray is having this is we can offer it at wholesale to coaches and academies all over the world that can then resell it to their players. It's not a huge financial stream for them, but it's just something else. It's a little auxiliary product that you want your players to have to practice with. And, now it's available instead of, having to buy 250,000 cans, which would probably, you wouldn't even have a place to put that many cans. I mean, you can imagine 250,000 cans of foot spray sitting in a golf academy. It's kind of ridiculous.
All right, Kyle,
Another,
go ahead.
I'm sorry about this coming in. It's actually not my computer I'm using, so trying to figure that out. But I wanted to add that one of the big things that we learned with this is you can't ship foot spray like you could a normal golf club. And so it's been a learning process for us as to how you can ship something that contains a propellant or an aerosol. And Mike and I had grandiose ideas of how we were going to roll this out, and we completely got that wiped out right away once we learned how you have to ship it. So it's been quite an adventure for us.
Kyle, I'm curious. It's just too easy to not ask this question. What's one or two ideas that Mike had that you're like, no, dude, you're absolutely crazy?
We've got what would you call it, like a slice corrector and a hook corrector club.
Yeah.
That's one of them for sure that has thrown out the pipeline. We also have potentially a grip strengthening device that Mike and Greg Rose have kind of talked about. So those are the three that kind of have been the most recent that have come up. The funniest thing, though, is he brought up SuperSpeed C. That's actually our first SuperSpeed product in the golf line since the first origination. So we've always been very calculated as to if we're going to do something, we better do it right, and we better make sure that we actually know what we're doing instead of just releasing something every year and then kind of letting that product sit there or not work effectively.
So tell us a little bit about the SuperSpeed C. How did that come about, and then how has that been going, and what's the main benefit of adding that fourth club into the mix?
I wouldn't say it's a fourth club into the mix. I'd say it's kind of a totally separate training system unto itself. Let's put it that way. The genesis of this was actually, I don't know, Kyle, 2.5, 3 years ago now? Yeah. It was PGA show. We met a gentleman named John Marini. So he's actually, he was the creator of the Perfect Pendulum. So he's been working with different types of counterweighting kind of products, more in the short game side and putting side for a long time. But he approached us and had a clip-on counterweight device that you could put on the top of a club, and ask us if we could do some testing to see if it had any positive effects on somebody's swing speed. So basically trying to use that clip-on product as some type of a training method for swing speed in conjunction with our club. So we started testing that, and we clipped it onto a normal driver, tested that, didn't see great results. We clipped it on to some of our SuperSpeed clubs. We saw varied results. Then we clipped it onto the yellow one, the senior ladies club, which essentially made that club about the same weight as a player's normal driver. So it made it right around 315 grams with 100-gram counterweight on that club. And all of a sudden we started to see people's speeds jump like crazy. We're like, okay, so that's what that makes a big difference. Even though we're changing the MOI of the club significantly with that counterweight, when you do that with a normal weighted driver, you're still adding 100 grams to the driver. So we don't see the big results. But when we can keep the actual overall weight of the club somewhat similar to the player's driver, just change the MOI by moving that counterweight way back on the back and making sure it's behind the player's hands, we started to see big 4, 5, 6% jumps in swing speed, even with players that have already been doing the super speed, overspeed training for a while. As we started to look deeper into that, what we really started to see is, we've always known that with our overspeed training, we see big increases in some of the biomechanical areas of speed gain. So we see huge jumps in rotational velocity in the pelvis and the torso. Usually we were seeing those in the 12 to 15% jump in rotational velocity, which is big. We would also see usually about a 5 to 6% jump in rotational velocity in your arm and hand segments with the normal system. So we always thought there was something more there. when we got to the SuperSpeed C and looked at that, we started to see matching like 12 to 15% gains in arm and hand velocity with that SuperSpeed C club. So that was kind of a big deal there on the research side. When we saw that, so now we're specifically targeting an overspeed training of effect on the hand and arm speed in the golf swing with the SuperSpeed C training. So that was kind of the main genesis of that. Now we released it. We did decide to release it with 3 completely separate protocols. So it is its own standalone system. You can buy just the SuperSpeed C training system, pick it up, do the SuperSpeed C protocols, and you're going to see good results. You can also use it in conjunction with the normal overspeed training sets. Theoretically, we feel that's the optimal way to do that training. We're working on some studies right now to prove that. But we do feel like it's a more comprehensive look at getting that real maxed out overspeed training effect throughout all the different segments of our body.
So somebody that has never touched the clubs, they're going to get benefit from using it just by itself. But for the people that already have it, you said that obviously they'll see a benefit. So Kyle, what does it look like for somebody that already has the clubs? How do they implement that into, obviously you don't have to give us the whole protocol, but what does it kind of look like as far as adding that into their normal SuperSpeed overspeed protocol?
Yeah, so if someone's in levels 1 through 3 of the overspeed training free club set, we recommend just replacing 1 day a week of the training with the counterweight training. So preferably we like them to do overall 3 times a week with the normal 3 club training. So we'll have them drop that down to 2 times a week and then just add 1 of the C club training protocols in. And I'd say most people are in that 1 to 3 protocol level. If you're on the more advanced levels, the 4 to 5, we actually allow people or recommend people to go ahead and add it as a combo, but just reduce the amount of reps in half that you're doing with the 3 club set. So you actually can do the 3 club set and the counterweight trainer in the same session. We're just looking to keep the volume down a little bit more. So if you can reduce the reps by half in levels 4 to 5, and then just add the full level of SuperSpeed C, seems to work best.
So I think that, one of the things that I think of when I think of speeding up arm and hand rotation and that portion of the swing, obviously there's a lot of people that are very upper body dominant on their swings. When they try to swing faster, they end up going a little bit more arms first, kind of throwing the club over the top kind of a thing. How does using this club to speed up hand rotation, arm rotation, and what it does, how does that help somebody that already has kind of that issue, if that's something that they've been struggling with?
I mean, let's put it this way. If they have that issue prior to doing the training, they're probably still going to have that issue afterwards. So it doesn't replace skill training by any means. We find players that have really good face control, really good ball flight control, after doing the training, still have really good face control, really good ball flight control. Players that don't, probably still need to develop those skills to really optimize what they're getting out of the game. The thing is, though, is that this training system with the SuperSpeed C, where the actual overspeed training effect of that training happens is right around release. So it's not going to be one that affects a player's ability, affects a player going over the top that much more, changing those mechanics, mainly because the only time you're going to see the reduced resistance of that club moving is right around impact. It's once the counterweight starts to accelerate backwards and the club can start to go, you get like that kind of slingshot effect of the club, and that's where we get that main overspeed training effect. If anything, because you have the balance of that club, so much weight in the handle, it actually provides a feel of a little more resistance for the club to start early. So the club's actually going to feel like it's harder to get going. It's just once it does get going, it's going to go really fast. So we don't really see that as an issue with changing like swing plane or anything like that. Again, a little bit different feel right around impact, but again, people with high skill level, high expertise in face control, that the adjustment there is very, very quick.
And Jeff, the interesting thing about the C Club is that it's actually the same weight as a normal men's driver. It's just we moved 100 grams to the very end of the grip. So it feels really light sometimes to people because they've never felt something so counterweighted. But then you start to understand kind of the concept behind it when you get into it. And there are some companies out there now, I believe XCO is doing it, where they're counterweighting the actual clubs. So it's kind of been a concept that's seemingly coming back around, and you're actually seeing in the golf industry a little bit more, just on that other consumer club side.
Kyle, what would you say are some of the bigger questions that you guys have been getting over the last several months or last 6 months or so, just revolving around speed? It seems like everybody's talking about speed. Obviously, we've been talking about it for a while now. You guys have been researching it for years now. But it's so prominent in the publications, in the media, what they talk about on the broadcast. What are some of the bigger questions that you get from more the regular golfers about speed and how they can truly improve their speed?
Yeah, I think one of them we get that we have to kind of calm people down with is, can I train more than you guys recommend? We get that almost on a daily basis of your very zealous golfer wanting to think that more is better here. So we often have to kind of pull the reins back on that and making sure that people are understanding that speed training is going to be kind of a different type of fatigue than you're going to feel as a normal strength training workout. Where you're not going to feel necessarily a muscle soreness, and you might feel like you could go ahead and train and feel fresh, but you have quite a lot of neural fatigue happening. And so typically we're seeing people that are doing that excessive training actually getting slower. So we've been really conscious during this time of trying to get people that are giving us all these questions, the real basis of why we're doing what we're doing, and then how to maximize what they're doing. So I think that's a big one we've been working on. And then also just helping the people understand what speed does to their game. And it's been helpful for us to have guys like Mark Brody, Scott Fawcett, Lou Stagner out there talking about how you can actually see the impacts of scoring average, strokes gained, that type of stuff, not just on the tour levels, but going down into the amateur levels and making different decisions off the tee. Do I lay up here? Do I actually pull driver? What's happening in terms of my proximity to the hole? And I think as a golf community, you're starting to think about how that impacts not just the tour levels anymore, but how it's going down throughout the amateur game. So it's been helpful to have those guys in the forefront of the media.
Yep.
How about you, Mike? Any other big topics that you've had to answer in a lot of your presentations, even coming from coaches or players themselves?
I can say as a general sense, because I do a lot of talking to coaches all over the world, I think there's much less resistance now to people wanting to get more speed. Like I think 5 years ago, we were talking about that and people would still say, well, no, but it's still going to be way more effective to work on, making more putts. It's still way more effective to work on different areas of control in the game. I mean, I think statistically and, looking at the math, if you want to play money ball with golf, we know that distance off the tee is the biggest bang for your buck now. So if it's not something you're not working on in your game, you're just missing out on probably the biggest factor of being able to improve your overall scoring average, opportunity for birdies, whatnot. So that's what I would say is that I just think that it's becoming much more mainstream, and we've seen it on tour for a long time, right? Like it's not a secret on tour that the guys that hit the ball the furthest have the best chance to win every week. I mean, it's just kind of the way it has always been. I just think now we're starting to get that more and more to the amateur ranks.
What do you say to the amateur? Because I know that one of the big concerns is, okay, well, I don't hit the ball straight every time. So if I'm gaining more distance or trying to get more distance, I'm just going to hit it further into the woods. But I know that you guys in a lot of your research have actually seen dispersion patterns that have kind of narrowed when people start to work on speed. Is that right, Mike?
I would say two things to that. There's two main concepts here that I think are very important. The first one is that if you hit the ball exactly the same way before and after, and you just have 5 more miles an hour at club speed, then yes, it might go a few yards further into the rough or a few yards further off the center of the fairway. Well, to that point, it really depends on where you're starting. Like if you're hitting at 185 yards off the tee and you're down the center of the fairway every single time, I don't care if it goes 10 yards further off the center line. 20 yards off that added to that is going to be such an advantage. You're probably still in the fairway, so it doesn't matter. Even when you start to get to that point of hitting the ball into the rough slightly, it really is still an advantage statistically to be 20, 30 yards closer to the pin out of the rough than 20 yards back in the fairway most of the time. The other side of that coin, which I think is maybe even more important for amateur golfers, is that, we see an increase in athletic efficiency with the way players are swinging the golf club when they go through our training and when they gain speed. It's impossible, theoretically impossible to gain 5 or 6 miles an hour in your swing speed without increasing some type of athletic efficiency of what you're doing, whether it's using the ground better, sequencing better, lagging the club better, whatever it might be. There's some improvement of the efficiency of the golf swing. And we certainly see a trend that as efficiency of the golf swing increases, we see an increase not only in speed and power, but also consistency, repeatability, centeredness of contact. All of those different areas tend to improve as well with the onset of improving the efficiency of the golf swing.
What would you say is the best way to, the question for golfers often is, okay, how do I take what I have been doing on the range to the course? What's the best way to take what they've done with their super speed training and mimic the same kind of swing when they go out to the course, try to get that speed with their driver off the tee box? Because I know for me personally even, I'll have the super speed clubs and I'll be ripping swings in the gym. And sometimes I go out to the tee box and I get a little hesitant. So Kyle, what would you say is the best way to take that with you and make sure that you're still doing the same kind of swings when you're on the course?
The people that we've seen that struggle the most oftentimes have found really good success training in front of the radar with their actual driver and no ball. So especially for the better player, we've often seen that, when you put that face back on the end of the shaft, your subconscious brain is starting to signal that I need to slow down to make that impact condition optimized. So the better the player, the more that player is going to try to do everything they can to make sure that they make contact correct and optimize the launch conditions. But if you can start to train with the driver without a ball using that radar and start to figure out how that goes, a lot of times it can help bridge that gap to get on the course. Oftentimes also, like what Mike was talking about with the athleticism, sometimes you're getting out on the course and you're thinking, I have to start to kind of try to really stabilize my body or start to really tense up different segments. And I think the instructors in golf have often, they had taught a lot more about making things a lot more stable in the lower body or restricting movements. And now they're getting away from that as well. So don't be afraid to allow maybe the feet to move a little bit more, that heel to lift, the legs to move a little bit more. You're seeing the longest players actually are the ones that change the way they move their lower body and look a little bit more like a long drive professional than they used to before, where you saw more of your kind of Jason Day, really strict lower pelvis, lower half, and feet planted on the ground.
Yeah, I'd add to that too, Jeff. Just from a basic motor learning standpoint, like history and memory of what you've done previously when you're out on certain golf holes is a really strong factor that's going to push you into old habits. So I would always really recommend that people try to do something different when they're out on the golf course, whether it's, adding some type of different trigger into their pre-shot routine that can be a major factor in trying to do these new, more aggressive athletic type swings off the tee. Even things as simple as like making sure that you tee the ball up on the opposite side of the tee box from where you normally do on those holes is a really effective way to allow yourself to do new things on that hole. Because when you set up exactly the same as you always have year after year, your brain immediately clicks into the memory of what you've been doing on that hole previously. So do something different, add in new triggers. Those kind of things make a huge difference in getting this out to the golf course.
Two questions. When you're doing the super speed protocols, we always end up with the lightest club to kind of keep that freshest, fastest swing. Do you recommend, Kyle, you were just talking about using your regular driver in front of the radar too. Do you guys recommend pulling out the regular driver at the end of a session to kind of get that same feel? And then the second question would be, I hear from a lot of people, is super speed something I can use in my warm-up before I go play? And so I think those two questions kind of work together a little bit. So Mike, I'll have you kind of tackle first the idea of, should we pull out the driver after the super speed session?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit more player dependent. So some people need that more than others. What I would recommend, I like having people hit balls before and after, honestly, to be able to see the differences and the change in the actual flight and the change in the actual ball speed as well. But I do think it can be very effective to right after that training, maybe make a couple practice swings with your own driver, trying to maintain that same speed, then immediately hit a couple balls trying to maintain that same speed. And I think at that point, I'm less worried about where the ball goes. I'm less worried about anything except trying to maintain the club speed. I think that's an effective thing to do. Call it like a speed integration drill into the actual, into the actual norm of when you're hitting a driver. So that can be something that's very effective. As far as warming up, absolutely, but it depends where you are in the training. So, I think you've probably seen that chart we have where we show that the normal training cycles go with like a jump, meaning that when you very first start, you're going to see a big jump before and after. And it usually takes about 6 to 8 weeks of going through a normalization of getting those before and after speeds to be about the same and getting that kind of permanency in that speed gain that you've gotten. During those normalization phases, I probably wouldn't do it as part of my warm up just because, it sucks to hit the ball 10 yards over the green too. So you've got to be very careful during those early times in the training. Once you get yourself though into like that third month, you're past that normalization phase, you're into a plateau, you're pretty stable. We find it's a great thing to do in the warm up for players. As long as they're not getting too tired, it's a great way to kind of get all of the motor units in your body firing. It kind of just primes that nervous system to be in a really good state. And that's what you see with a lot of your tour players out there that are doing this. They're doing that as part of their warm-up now, not because they want a big before and after jump before the round, more so because they just want to get in a constant, consistent state before every round they play so they know exactly what to expect from their body, and this neurological priming is part of that.
And Kyle, would you say, are they doing kind of a full session of their overspeed training there, or is it kind of a modified session, or does it depend on the player?
Boy, yeah, with the tour players, it ranges all over the board what they're doing. You'll see, like Mickelson's doing a full-out warm-up. You'll see Brian Gay just really likes the green club beforehand. So kind of who's also on their team and what they're working on in terms of their phases in the gym or what they're working on in their swing. So I've seen quite a lot of different things, but it's kind of interesting too. You'll also see potentially a change if they have a morning tee time versus an afternoon tee time, or what day it is in terms of the preparation, Monday through Wednesday versus if it's a Thursday, Friday round or Saturday, Sunday. I do know that it changes in the morning sometimes. Like Mike said, they feel like they're a little more sedated in the morning, so they're trying to really wake up the nervous system versus in the afternoon, they might already be in a little bit better place, so they don't want to pre-fatigue themselves more. So I've seen kind of across the board, but generally we try to just work with the player as what they're doing with their periodization of their training and then help them kind of manage that on that level as well.
And that's one of the reasons we don't have a lot of that released on our website, like what those players do, because we've always been very careful to the protocols we release and the instructions we give that they can apply to everyone. So a lot of that kind of stuff becomes a lot more player specific. I think it's really good to work with players' coaches. We have a lot of people that send us in questions and videos and things like that about asking about what they're doing and what we would recommend for their specific circumstance. And we're happy to answer those. But yeah, it's harder. Those are a little harder to just give a blanket, this is going to apply to everybody generalization in some of those scenarios.
I had somebody ask me recently about plyometrics training and SuperSpeed training and whether you would consider SuperSpeed plyometrics training. I figured this is a great place for you guys to be able to answer that yourselves. So Kyle, what would you say to that?
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about that, and Mike specifically. So the PAP training, Mike, you want to get into that a little bit? What you talk a lot about?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many different concepts that are out there as far as like what types of physical training this is actually, relying on. I think there's different pieces that are involved, right? Number one is just that straight neuromuscular overspeed training where we're really just trying to change the normal reaction speed of the muscle of our body to the signal that's sent by our brain when we pull the trigger on a golf swing. That's a big piece. But there are other things in there too. One of them would be what we would call like lighting the fuse, right? So like we're doing a lot of drills that like pre-activate different muscles in our body prior to making them fire in the golf swing. It's kind of like, having somebody stand up on a box, jump off, land, and then do a vertical jump. We're doing that with the different types of drills that we have players do in their golf swing, which is significantly more complicated than just a single plane vertical jump when we're doing a big, a golf swing. But we do a lot of that kind of pre-activation training. So we call that kind of lighting the fuse. The other stuff is a lot of the non-dominant training is also really big for just motor unit activation, getting more muscles active in the body before we're going to try to get them to use force. So that's another big thing that happens, in this training. The newest thing that we've started to really look into, which I think is really exciting, came out of actually the baseball research we've been doing. And one of our partners, Steve Johnson over in Virginia, did a great study where he added in what we would call an overload preparation phase to the training. So think of overload training as being essentially the opposite of overspeed training. Overload training is going to be lifting heavy stuff outside of the normal motion that you're doing, just simply to get more muscle and motor units in the body firing, and then going through a motion where we're trying to make them move fast. So think of this as our normal process of overspeed training we do now is warm up and then go through the speed training, right? Well, this added in a middle phase. It was warm up, then do heavy lifting, like some types of plyometric exercises, some types of like, he did a lot of like dynamic, like med ball throw type, power type movements. Then we did the overspeed training motor program specific to baseball swings. So our normal results in baseball, we see about a 6% increase in bat speed doing our normal process. Adding in that overload prep phase, he was able to move that up to almost 10% increase. So I think there is definitely some coordination of these different types of things that we can do that can really optimize the gains that you can get out of this training. It's a little harder to recommend that everybody goes and, does a bunch of like jump squats and power slams and things like that. I'm a little scared that, I don't know what that player is capable of physically before I start recommending that they start doing that in the gym before they do overspeed training. But at the same time, like if it's somebody that is working, with a fitness professional that knows that they can do that stuff, might be an optimal way to be able to integrate the training.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm curious to hear more about just kind of, reps and sets and stuff like that. Was it kind of a short little session of some of that more powerful type movement stuff?
Yeah, it wasn't long. I think it was probably like 8 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes max with some rest intervals in there. Generally, he was using like squats, lunges, lifts, slams, those chops, those kind of movements. But yeah, I wouldn't be. I could get you more of the detail on it, but yeah, about an 8 to 10 minute station there, then some rest time, then immediately going into the overspeed training.
Gotcha. Hey guys, we have a couple questions coming in. A lot of them revolving around. You just kind of mentioned warm up and warming up before a round or before your super speed sessions. So Jeff was asking here if you guys have a pre-round warm up protocol at all that's available for people, especially since a lot of people's driving ranges are closed right now before they go and play.
Yeah, we have one on our website just as a physical dynamic warm up. It is more just preparing the body. It's not necessarily based around the super speed clubs, except the red club we will have them swing. So our goal is to pre-activate some things, get the blood flow moving, but not necessarily do like static stretching or static movements to sedate the nervous system. We want to prime the nervous system to be ready and obviously reduce the risk of injury. So definitely do not do speed training cold ever. That's a big thing that we try to teach. We also kind of have like a dynamic warm-up they can do with the clubs, but it's just like we said, it's hard to know what phase they're going to be in. So we've tried to stick to something that we know everyone will get benefit of. So you can see that on our website under the training section.
Yeah, I think it's just important that people, just what you said there is, first of all, don't do your speed training cold. So doing any kind of warm-up is better than doing nothing. And just getting the word out there for golfers that doing some sort of warm-up, and like you were talking about, Mike, some of this pre-activation stuff where you're getting these muscles moving or getting them awake before you go play, just that alone. In fact, I have a story. I was talking to my dad one time when I got him a set of super speed clubs, and he went through the routine, and I kind of asked him what his speeds were. And, it was different. It was like 10 miles an hour different from start to finish. And I told him, I'm like, okay, so when you go play a round of golf, let's just take this as just looking at a warm-up. I'm like, you never warm up. Like, just doing that warm-up is going to give you another several miles an hour of speed off that first tee. That's potentially 10 to 20 yards or so just by doing a proper warm-up and waking your body up. I mean, it's crazy how much that impacts a golfer, but so many golfers just pull into the parking lot, pop the trunk, run to the first tee box, and they're done. Are you starting to see, Mike, people starting to implement this stuff a little bit more as we educate more?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the dynamic warm-up program that's on our website only takes about 6 to 8 minutes to go through. So, like, if you have less than 10 minutes before your tee time, like we have a program there that you can download on your phone and just go through and do. That is definitely the best thing possible. If you have a little more time than that, I'd love to go through that, then start to actually do a few different, like maybe ball flight control drills, or just get the feel of what's going on that day for the player. I mean, this is what we do with our tour players. They're trying to figure out, what feels that day, are producing what results. Everything's a little different. Your body's varied a little different every day. So honing in, knowing exactly those yardages, knowing that, wow, today, like that little 3-yard fade's really working, the 10-yard draw is not working, and knowing that stuff before you're round can definitely shave some strokes off of any given day.
All right, guys, I know you've worked with a lot of tour players, PGA pros, European tour pros. I'm curious, we see a lot of these guys of all different shapes and sizes. You've got your Ricky Fowlers, you've got your Justin Thomas, you've got your Dustin Johnson, John Rahm, Tony Finau. All of these guys have different builds, different body types. Some are probably more athletic than others, but all of them can generate so much power and speed. What do you think it is that allows, Kyle, I'll maybe go to you first here. What do you think it is that allows a guy like a Ricky Fowler to go out there and I don't know how close he is to a Tony Finau in distance, but, for two guys like that, such different swings to generate such distance?
Yeah, I think it's cool with a lot of the technology that we have now available to us. So got the pressure or force plate type mats. We've got the 3D system. So we're able to see a lot more of what these players are doing kind of under the hood instead of just looking through a normal video camera that we've done for a long time. And we can see exactly how and when they're pressing on the ground, or can see exactly how fast each segment is moving and how fast it's moving in relation to another. So even though their swings, like Ricky's swing may look very different than Justin Thomas, it may look fairly similar on some of these other technology devices. They might be using the ground very effectively, very similarly, or they might be rotating similarly. It just looks different mechanically. So if we can kind of get just looking at video out of the way and seeing what the trends are with a lot of these players, no matter their body shape or height or weight, oftentimes they have clues with these type of swings that we can kind of lean on and then allow that to blend into your amateur player who is looking for how do they do this with this type of body shape.
I'm always amazed, when I see some of these younger players, some of these high school kids that, they come out and they might weigh 125 pounds soaking wet, but they're able, many of them have been swinging fast from the time they were little kids, and they're able to generate this speed and this power. Mike, what is it about implementing that from such a young age? Like I know that I work with guys that are 40, 50, 60, and they all want to get more speed, but they're never going to be able to get the kind of speed that somebody who's been doing it for that many years has.
Yeah, I would say we use a concept at SuperSpeed we call athletic ceiling. Okay, so let me explain that real quick. Like athletic ceiling is essentially, as a human being, your absolute maximum peak potential to create speed and power. Regardless of if it's swinging a golf club or a baseball bat or whatever, physically, right? And that quotient, if you will, comes from the equation of your genetics, which we don't really have any control over. Like you kind of have what you have on the genetic side, and there is an advantage there. There are some people that genetically will have a predisposition to having the opportunity to create more speed and power than other people. Then the other part of that equation is going to be your developmental process. So what you did as a kid growing up, what kind of activities did you play a lot? Did you sit on the couch? All the different things that are going to cause genetic expression, which is essentially your body picking different parts of the genetic code based on your environment to eventually come out with that eventual athletic ceiling. So what we know about this is really interesting is that you can have somebody that genetics wise, just straight genetic code, could be Jason Zubek, but never really did anything when they were a kid. And now they have nowhere close to that potential. And you can have another player, like a Justin Thomas or a Ricky Fowler, who, aren't going to be linebackers in the NFL ever, but because they did a lot of great things when they were kids, we're still able to create this high athletic ceiling and high potential for speed and power for the rest of their lives. So I think that's a really important thing to look at. I actually think it's one of the most exciting things for the sport of golf, compared to other sports, because, you know, if you're not 6'5", you're probably gonna have a hard time in the NBA. And if you're not, you know, 6'3", 240, I don't want you to be a linebacker on an NFL team. But, you know, you can be 5'7", 140, and if you do the right things as a kid, still have the potential to be an elite golfer at a very high level and create really high speed and power. Now, again, you're still going to have your Brooks Koepkas and your Dustin Johnsons of the world that are always going to have a little bit of an advantage there, just from a size standpoint and genetic standpoint. But it's an exciting thing that everybody really can get to a high level in golf and be very, very successful at that end.
I'm curious, just before we wrap up here, guys, I know you've worked with so many different players. You guys have had the opportunity to even just be out and see so many people in person, guys smashing balls on the driving range. Who's one, if you could pick one person, who's kind of the most impressive person you've seen, whether it be distance-wise or club control or whatever, that you watched them and you were just kind of in awe watching them hit balls?
Mine was Cameron Champ. Well, I saw him come out a couple of years ago, right before he turned pro, and then obviously he's won twice since then. But the amount of club head speed that he could generate and how straight he hit it for that much speed, 132 miles an hour, was kind of something that is kind of changing the way people think about stuff. Mike and I have always talked about through the years, like, what's that max ceiling that someone could put in terms of club head speed on tour and still play on tour? Because at some point the ball spins enough where it's just harder to, you know, obviously control what you're doing. But now with the balls, the technology of the clubs, I mean, they're pressing these limits that people thought, you know, the 120 might be now the new, or 130 might be the new 120. So in terms of club head speed out there, and what I saw this young man be able to do, I think is changing a lot of the way people think about how fast I can swing and still play really high level competitive golf.
Yeah, mine would probably be McIlroy. Same kind of thing. Like it just a different sound to what it sounds like when the guy hits a 5-iron than some of the other people. And I mean, I remember being down, I think we were down at Eastlake at the Tour Championship one year, and he came out and we were at the range. I don't remember who we were working with, but we were out on the range and there were probably 10, 15 guys out hitting balls. And he came out and he'd already warmed up, and I think he was starting out with like 6 or 7-iron. And I mean, the very first one that he struck, like 6 of the guys out on tour that were hitting balls turned their heads and looked over and like, who is that? And I was like, oh, it's Rory. And it's like, yeah, I mean, so there's even a few of those guys out there still that, like, when they just, there's a different sound to it. And even those guys, I would say, are still impressed by some of those players.
That's amazing. I mean, the thing that strikes me about Cameron Champ is that when you watch him swing, it's not that he makes it look effortless, but it does not look like he's trying to swing really hard. It's just he's got such a great swing, but it's like, man, he just generates so much out of it. And not a big guy. Same with Rory, not a big guy, and I got to see him at Belle Reve, you know, from about probably 15 feet away. And it's just like, you're just kind of awestruck when you watch the positions that he gets in. And like you said, the sound of it, it's just amazing. It's so much fun. Guys, this has been a blast. Always a good time having you guys on. Any last pieces of advice for guys trying to get some extra speed out there, Kyle?
I mean, I think this is the best time. If you've been committing to getting some speed right now, maintain it and keep going when the courses get open or you're able to get to your range or whatever it is. If you're going through level 1, get through level 2. If you're going through level 2, get through level 3. And also, if you can combine a golf fitness program with that, you're going to even more maximize the results, like Mike was talking about. Mm-hmm. So I think we've got the blueprint for you guys, and obviously Jeff has the 18 strong blueprint. Just put those into action because they work, and if you do it and follow it, you'll get the results.
Awesome. How about you, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just, you know, it's always something when we have a disruption, I would say, to our normal lives like this. You know, find those things that can occupy your time. And if golf's one of those things you're passionate about, find the things that you can do at home to be able to help you get better. And, you know, we definitely have stuff at SuperSpeed that can help you. You know, check out the Strike Spray products too. I think that's another big one. You can really check and work on some of those drills for centerness of contact. That can be a huge factor. So all you need is a hitting net at home, and you can still check and see where you're hitting that ball in the face. That can be a really major deal too. So yeah, I mean, obviously, feel free to reach out to us as well. All of our social media is that at SuperSpeed Golf, or our website, or email us, whatever you guys need. We're here to help and try to help support you guys get some more speed as the season gets started up here.
Awesome, guys. Thanks again for your time. We'll be in touch very soon.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, and thank you guys for listening and watching here at the 18 Strong Live podcast. This will be up on the regular iTunes podcast in the next couple of weeks. Just a reminder, again, go to superspeedgolf.com. You can use the code 18 Strong to get a discount on all of the products that these guys offer. And like I said, I can't recommend them high enough. They have been not only a supporter of us here, but we've been a huge supporter of them from the beginning, and it's because their products work. So definitely go check out superspeedgolf.com. Also want to say thanks to our other featured sponsor, Linksole. And if you haven't entered to win some Linksole gear in our weekly giveaway, go to iTunes and just enter a rating and review for the 18 Strong podcast, and you'll be in the running for whatever item it is that we're giving away that week. All right, we'll catch up with you again soon here at 18 Strong. Train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.